This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day, carefully crafted for you by humans. So meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Fully Managed Podcast. This is the podcast where we discuss marketing and business tips to help assist you guys in your business journeys. I'm your host, Daniela, and I'm Penji's partnership coordinator. I'm joined here today with a very special guest, Janet Carlson from 111 Group. Hi, Janet. How are you?
Nice to be here.
It's so good to have you. I kind of messed up the intro there with my grammar, but that's
all right. We're off to a fine start.
We're off to a good start anyways. How are you doing today, Janet? How are you doing?
It's not snowing,
Nice.
although it's supposed to snow later, but we live in New England, so I can't bitch about that. You know what I mean? You have to kind of deal with it.
I mean, I've actually never seen like big bits of like heavy snowfall in my life. I lived in Texas for a little bit in Dallas when I was a kid, and it snowed there a few winters, but it was like very light. And
that's called hard freeze, honey.
That was the most amount of snow that I had ever seen. And then when I left, I saw that they had like a couple of like actual snowstorms, but I wasn't living there anymore. So, never really seen, like big snowfall.
Wow. You need to get out.
Yeah, I need to I've always wanted to see it. Like I'm not good with the cold weather though. I'm from El Salvador, so it's always hot here.
Oh, wow.
And we don't have winter.
Might like to have a little bit of that next month.
Yeah, that's nice. I mean, spring is coming up, so should be good. Well, Janet, just to kind of get the ball rolling, the ice breaking, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, 111 Group, just everything that we got to know about you?
Sure. I'll give you the nickel version if I could possibly do that. I'm one of 5 siblings, so there was always a lot of yapping. So I'm one of 5 and a military family to boot. So my family's Air Force.
Okay.
Let's see. So I moved all the time. I moved pretty much every 2 or 3 years my entire life. There's pros and cons to that. For me, I got really good at making friends quickly. I was good at building relationships. I also learned a wicked right cross because when you go to a base, every time a new group of kids shows up, there's also a group of like a wolf pack that shows up to challenge you. I don't know what's up with that, but so I was the tallest of the siblings, so I got shoved to the front, even though I was second in command and the sibling group. Yeah, I was the tallest. So my older sister, who's 2 years older than me, by the way, would shove me to the front to take on the biggest kid. And so I learned to punch them in the face, and that was pretty much the end of that. My dad was a commander, and he wasn't really happy with me punching kids. But anyway, that's a whole nother story, Danielle. We can talk about that another time. So I don't make friends by punching people now. I did learn to box formally. I boxed for 10 years very seriously in New York City. I got invited to the Golden Gloves. I turned it down because by then I was running a company. And I digress, but I had to tell you the boxing things. That's kind of cool. So I went to college. I studied medicine. I had planned to be a doctor. I planned since 2nd grade to be a physician. When I finished college, I applied to medical schools, and they were like, okay, you ready to do this? And I said, I am not. I'm going to take a year break. So I took a year break. I went to work for Pfizer. I talked to 300 doctors. None of them want to be a doctor again, by the way. It was managed care was coming about. A lot of things were changing. I think there was just a lot of concern. So I actually opted out of med school twice after that and went to work for Pfizer Pharmaceuticals. I am an ideator, so I come up with new ideas. That's my jam. It's a gift. It's not as appreciated in pharma as you might think. So needless to say, they started the Bright Ideas Committee for me. I still have the mug.
Oh.
Yeah. So basically, it was a place for me to spit my ideas and shut me up so I could go back to work. After that, I did the obvious moves to move to Madison Avenue where they dug new ideas. And so that's what I did. I went to work in a medical advertising agency and I got recruited by an entrepreneur from there, Christopher Whittle, who started the Medical News Network. I was one of, I think there were 11 of us that were the executives. And I was the only female executive, which mattered not. The guys were awesome. And that lasted, I think, 3 years. A brilliant opportunity. I was in charge of the J&J companies. And after that, I started my own company because that's what we all did. We all said, oh, what else are we going to do? Like, we've worked for the most amazing company. Where do you go from there? You start your own gig. And so every one of us did that. All the executives from the Medical News Network went off and started their own gig. So that's what I've been doing ever since. We focused in the medical arena because I dig medicine. We focused a lot on healthcare professionals because I knew how to talk to them. We made a nice niche for ourselves because we were the first digital agency focused on healthcare professionals in the world. So that's kind of cool. We built the first website in pharmaceutical industry. It looks like shit. When I look back on it now, it's appalling to me. But hey, as the first doesn't always look beautiful, but it was a cool thing to be able to brag about. We did the first email programs to physicians. We did the first sampling program. Drug samples get taken into doctors. We thought that was kind of silly. So doctors could order samples using their mobile and sign on it. And now we've created the VoxPlan brand, which is a new way to do brand planning. And if you're in pharmaceuticals, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Other people, it's a business plan that's geared for pharma. So that's what we've been doing. And that was really long. Sorry about that.
No, it's totally okay. I think your story is so interesting. Actually, you kind of like already addressed my first question, which was
Sure.
why did you decide to do pharmaceutical? Pharmaceutical.
Cool. And so I worked in a hospital and there was a hospital and senior living connected to each other. I went to school in Indiana. And like the med schools basically said, you need to make sure that you know pharmaceuticals because that's where doctors are not as good. That's a weak point. So really focus on that and you'll do well. And so I got certified to pass medicines in the hospital. And I also did wound care because I thought it was interesting. And believe me, I saw some Christ awful wounds. But it was so fascinating because it was like, oh my God, look at that. It smelled terrible. It looked god awful. And people would freak out. But I just saw it as a problem to solve and it didn't bother me any, honestly. So I thought those skills would translate well for medical school. Let me tell you, as a now a mom of 3 kids, wound care and pharmacy comes in really handy when you have children. So, I also patched up all the neighborhood kids. So, pharmaceuticals was just a pathway that I was going to use for med school. And it ended up being a pathway for my life, to be honest.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But I totally agree with like wound care. And just knowing about pharmaceuticals is so helpful. I'm also a big, so we're also 5 kids. And I don't know if you experienced this growing up, but my sisters and my brother, they got sick all the time. Like all the time. I think I was honestly the healthiest one when we were kids. Like I would get sick, but never as bad as my sibling.
Oh.
But the amount of diseases that my mom just had to sort of face with my siblings and myself, it made her such an expert on medicine and just wound healing.
Yeah.
That just like you can be a whole ass doctor. Like I always say that to
I know.
like, so much.
Well, so 3 of my family members have rare diseases. My mother has homozygous familial hypercholesterolemia. I know it's quite a mouthful, but it's basically super high numbers as far as lipids and cholesterol go. Her total cholesterol I think was over 700. Maybe it was her LDLs. I'm trying to remember. It was, but anyway, I'm not exactly remembering whichever, but it was like a god awful number. So she was actually, we lived in Missouri at the time, and she was actually in studies at the University of Missouri because she was so weird. 2 of my siblings got that gene. I did not. But she started having heart attacks at 30, which is, as a woman, a childbearing woman, that's very unusual. So, yeah, she was very interesting to scientists and such. So I grew up in a household where I had two brothers that had this gene, and they knew it, that we all got tested. So they knew that my two brothers had the disease, and they started on lipid regulators. I think they were 12, maybe 13, but to prevent them from having heart attacks or for building a plaque. Then I kept looking at one of my brothers, and he's public, he's out with this. So it's okay for me to talk about this. My brother Chuck, I just kept looking at him. We'd be in the mirror, he'd be combing his hair, doing whatever. He didn't have any chest development. He didn't have an Adam's apple. He didn't have underarm hair. And I kept thinking to myself, what the actual hell is going on with this? Because, like my friends, they were skinny, but they had secondary sex characteristics. My brother did not. And
Yeah.
I kept saying, I think something's wrong with Chuck. I think something's wrong with Chuck. My parents were like, what are you talking about? He's just a slow developer. So my freshman year of college, I took genetics, and we were talking about, like all kinds of different, diseases that come up, chromosomal diseases. And we talked about Klinefelters. And I was like, holy shit, that's my brother. And so I went home on break and I said, Chuck has Klinefelters. And they're like, what in the actual hell are you talking about? I was like, get him checked. They did, and he did. So I diagnosed him with Klinefelter's disease as an 18-year-old. And
No.
yeah, rare diseases are very interesting to me. And partly, because my family had to deal with them. I watched
Yeah.
my brother struggle with some of the side issues, learning disabilities, and he's overcome all of that. He's one of the funniest, kindest, smartest, and most amazing people on the planet. But he has health issues that come from that, one after another. It's crazy. So
No, I totally get it. Yeah, like
yeah,
I think when health is involved, it really sort of influences the person that you are. It really changes you.
it's very personal.
Yeah, because it's like, and especially if it's something that you have to deal with for like the rest of your life, right? Like if it's a chronic illness,
Yeah.
it becomes a part of who you are in a way.
Yes.
Not
Accept who you
yeah,
are. I mean, and he's very clear about that. All my mom and my siblings are very clear about this. This is a piece of who we are. It does not define who we are.
yeah, it's not who you are as a whole, but it
Correct.
definitely influences a lot of the stuff that has happened to you.
People around you too. Yeah, I had to eat more for a long time in my family because my mom thought that was better for them. It's disgusting, by the way.
That's actually, I think it's really interesting that, you sort of were using pharmacy as an avenue for medicine, and you sort of found your way of life through it, basically, kind of like, your job. It's very inspiring. I think a lot of people don't always know what to do when the path that they had envisioned for themselves is not the path as being paved out.
Yeah.
But I think like stories like yours to me are always super inspiring because it shows you that, not what you had in mind is not necessarily what is best for you, right?
Well, no, I have to share that my parents still are very disappointed I didn't get med school, and I still hear about it. And at this point in time, I mean, I actually wrote a manifesto about it because I was like, y'all got to quit, beefing on me about the med school things. Come on. And so, I actually really stood up and I said, like, there's a couple of things you're not going to discuss with me. Here's a list of 8 items that I no longer want to hear about. I love you, but knock it off. And so they've been pretty good. And I do have my manifesto if I have to bust it out. But I think that your path gets influenced by a few things. Your family can have a lot of influence on that. At the end of the day, you're the guy who has to show up and do that shit. So if that's not your thing and not your jam, like do something else for Christ's sakes. No one on their deathbed says, I wish I went to work more.
Yeah.
One, so and let the path find itself. Like, don't get nuts. Like, do something to make money and figure it out. But beat yourself up? Absolutely not.
No, I totally agree. I think it's really inspiring. And I think like when I was doing research on your agency, on like everything that you guys do, I mean, even if you're not a doctor, you have obviously helped a lot with healthcare providers and in the healthcare industry. So it's like you're still in the industry, and it's what you are doing is a big piece of healthcare. I think sometimes people forget that with stuff like medicine, the only thing that is important is not just doctors, because a doctor can be great, but you need someone who's providing medicines. You need, like you need someone who's giving infrastructure for hospitals. Like there's so much that sort
A
of
lot of
goes.
players. Well, so I mean, I got contacted by a doctor with the World Health Organization. She's focused on breastfeeding and really
Okay.
making sure that the myths are being busted around health, around breastfeeding and maternal depression and such. So I actually was on a long call with her. She's in Australia, by the way. So
Ooh.
we actually had a call last night. It was 5:30 my time. There was a 16-hour difference, which I find fascinating. But she had a great accent. She was huge energy. Like we clicked immediately. And she said, I need your help. We need to really get the word out more about breastfeeding and bust some of these myths around breastfeeding. I was like, I'm your girl. I got it. We're figuring out a plan to make that happen. But
They left.
yeah, no, but it's just amazing, to get a call from a physician from Australia to
Yeah,
get
so her
help from an American
yeah.
who runs a medical advertising agency. But we completely clicked. She reached out to me via LinkedIn, which I thought was really amazing.
I feel like, well, yeah, like, because I think advertising gets kind of overlooked when you think about an industry like the healthcare industry. Advertising in general is used in every industry, but a
Yes,
lot of times when you think of marketing, you think of advertising, the first thing that you're gonna think of is a billboard on the street with, like, a beer on it, right?
sure,
That's, like,
sure,
the
sure.
first but it's a lot more when you actually learn about it, there's stuff like yours where there's agencies who do that. I mean, I was talking to another guy who was his agency was focused on engineering,
Hmm.
companies who were sort of providing products that were too complex for people to understand, so, like, their advertising was kind of, like, dumbing it down for people.
Sure, sure, sure.
It
Yeah.
was really interesting, and I think, like, it's agencies like yours that show you that marketing is not just, the billboard on the street or the Instagram ad. There's a lot more that goes to it, right?
Well, there's awareness. So there's a couple different
Yeah.
stages. I mean, there's disease awareness,
Mhm.
there's drug awareness, there's device awareness,
Mhm.
and then there's making the physicians aware of it so that they can identify the appropriate patient, to then offer that product or service to them.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously, like I can tell that there's, like, a different approach to it, a lot of different steps, which I think is really interesting because, like, yeah, I mean, surface level, when I would if you had asked me maybe, like, 3 years ago, like, if I had to think of some kind of marketing for something, I would probably just been like, I don't know, like, when you see, like, a donut ad, and that's to
Sure.
me marketing, right? Because
Yeah.
also as a consumer, you tend to think more about B2C type of companies,
Yeah.
because that's what you're familiar with, right? What
Well,
you're
there's a lot, like in pharmaceuticals particularly, there's not a whole lot of room you have because it's so regulated. But like what I find irritating is the lack of sense of humor, um, sometimes the lack of humanity. It's just and all the ads start looking alike to me, which I find disheartening. I mean, and again, having experienced this, you bring a great idea to a pharma company, and it kind of gets killed by the med reg system, medical regulatory system. I am hoping that there's going to be like a lightening up of that a bit because the way you break through to people is not by droning on about the side effects because that makes you think, Jesus Christ, who would take that? I mean, you watch those ads on TV and you're like, Jesus, Joseph and Mary, like, it gives you a stroke. So, it may be a cause of your death. It's like, oh my God. Like, no, man, I'm gonna go ahead and pass on that, especially if it's something that's non-life threatening, and you could have strokes or God knows what else. It's just and they go on and on and on. It takes longer to talk about the potential side effects that affected two people, other than the benefits. But there's some categories that could definitely lighten up a little bit.
Yeah.
And I want to bring more of that levity and humanity to it. We worked with the hospital system.
I think there's a lot of, like, I mean, I'm thinking of the depression medicine
Mhm.
commercials that used to I don't know if they still do them because, like, honestly, I think with streaming services, sort of TV commercials have kind of died a little bit, but I just think of, like, when you would watch TV as when I would watch TV as a kid and I would get those depression medicine commercials with, like,
Yeah,
you
for
could
anxiety.
yeah, like, for anxiety medications, they'd be like, "Yeah, take a Xanax. Your life is horrible," and it'd be like I mean, that the commercials were just so heavy for, like, a 2-minute ad break, I think they were a bit much, at least
Yeah.
that was convenient. Yeah.
I mean, we've worked in literally every category, and there are a few categories that I wouldn't work in. There was one. Well, I mean, I don't think I'm speaking out of school when I say this. It was one of the early precursors weight loss, and it was very effective, but it had a side effect of explosive diarrhea. I mean, when I talk explosive diarrhea, I'm talking like you literally shit your pants. So, yeah. So I said, oh, I said, so what you're telling me is you can fit in the white jeans, but you can't wear them because you shit in them.
You're shaved.
Yeah, you shit yourself. And so I was like, yeah, that's a no go. I can't make shitting your pants skinny, yes, but a skinny shit ball. I was like, oh, well, I can't gussy that one up. I was like,
It's also,
that's a
I
no
mean,
for me. Yeah,
it's
so I
also
walked out of that meeting. I just said, yeah, it's
yeah, no, but I also feel like in a roundabout way, are you kind of promoting an eating disorder of like, I feel like it's like one of bulimia, except it's not vomiting. I don't
I
know. That's
think, yeah,
I,
I think that was it was a time where I think people were really desperate for a solution. And so they were actually willing to put up with absurd side effects like that. And now, thank goodness, there are new alternatives where there's, as long as, they're very carefully regulated, they really have minimal side effects and they do have an excellent impact and are leading to people having better health. I mean, that's the goal, right?
yeah, that's
You know?
as long as you're not harming yourself,
Yeah.
I think always great. I wanted to ask you, Janet, about the term Sherpa.
Mhm.
You have that so much showing up in your branding.
Sure.
Um, can you tell us about what it means and how does it really reflect, how you are collaborating with clients? How does it guide you, or what does it represent?
Yeah. So this was, gosh, the messaging for your own company is harder to do than any client messaging you'll ever do. I think I forgot about that. We've blown our stuff up, I don't know, 6 or 7 times. We've done new logos, new branding, new everything. And we just needed it. It was just, I think after just blowing off COVID and all that crap. So, we sat down at the table and we were brainstorming new ideas. And like I'd written up I thought some really sexy stuff, if I may say so. And it got shot down big time. And I was kind of pissed. We were at a team lunch and I was presenting, the new ideas and they got shot down. They're like, that's not where we're going. And I was like, wow, you? And I had to like step back. I said, okay, tell me, talk to me about it. And did some revisions, put it out actually to the industry on LinkedIn. And some of it got shot down too. And so I was like, okay, we're not there yet. And we reached out to another group and I said, I need a little bit of assistance because clearly we can't see the forest for the trees, it is what it is. I think most companies suck at writing their own stuff because you can't see your own attributes on some levels. I think once you get the gist of it, I think then you can take it from there. But that first kernel of really getting who you are,
You're too
you're too involved. Yeah, it's like somebody said it's like you're on the inside of the mayonnaise jar. You can't see your way out, which I was like,
yeah.
okay. Never heard that one, but that
I
kind of
mean, the
resonates.
mayonnaise are
The
interesting.
mayonnaise jar. I guess it's because there's stuff on the walls. So I just said, you know what, you're right. And I just said, let's take a step back. Let's talk to our peers. Let's talk to some clients. And we said, well, what are we really doing? I mean, we're guiding clients in healthcare and pharma space to get to where they are, from where they are now to where they want to go. That's a Sherpa. You're guiding them. Now, there's 2 ways you can do it. We work with them. Some clients want to like get their main stuff done and they want to carry it out and do it. Totally cool. Some clients want you to do the whole bloody thing. They just said, like, I want you to create it and then I want you to carry it out and I want you to check in with me. Fabulous. Done. So we can guide you or we can carry you. It's up to you.
It really depends on what you want, right? What
Depends on what you want. But we can go either way. It's really, it all starts with a plan. And we created the brand map to help clients really understand where they are now, where they want to go. And then we create that roadmap to get to that. We've worked with over 50 clients in the last year, creating brand maps and then carrying out those tactics for them.
Well, I think like what's really interesting and correct, feel free to correct me at any point, but I
Sure.
think with agencies like yours that are working with clients that are not that well versed in marketing, a lot of times I think I mean, I've spoken to a lot of agency owners who tell me that like there is a lot of people who don't want to bother with figuring it out, especially like with like smaller business owners because they just want to do product or if it's like a software thing. They just want to do their software and they don't want to think about marketing. So it's a lot easier for them to be like, here, you do it.
Well, there's also um, only 30% of small, medium businesses have a plan. That's
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't have a business plan. I think a lot of that is because they're not good at writing. I think there's a I think there's a barrier to people. They sit down and they're like, first of all, which plan should I do? Should be a
Yeah.
page? Should be 60 pages? Like, what questions are important? What do I need to answer? What do I need to have in this document? And so that's why we created the brand map, was because you don't have to think about it anymore. We have 46 questions that we have tested over almost 2 years, and we've seen it work. We've tweaked it. And PS, you do the brand map with your voice. You don't write. It's all in a program. It's programmed. You see a prompt, you tap, you answer with your voice. We did it with our team. So this year, before the end of December, I sat down my executive team. I said, we're doing our brand map for our business and we're doing a marketing plan. And that's what we're going to get done over the next 2 days. In 2 hours, we had those done.
Well, that's so much better. I think like especially for clients who are not um, going to necessarily want to do writing or videos or like there's like so
It
much
seems too hard.
yeah,
It's
it's so
too hard.
intimidating for most people. And then like I think you're also talking to someone who has to wear many hats, right? Like they're not just doing marketing. So
But any of them can give up an hour,
yeah.
have a plan to get, because you're not going
Yeah.
to succeed if you don't have a plan. Because you don't know where you are now. You don't know where the hell you're going. How are you going to get there?
So I think like what you guys do, which is offer just like the most optimized way and easiest and most streamlined way to do it is
Well, we
probably
like to think so, Danielle.
be like the more attractive thing to a business owner who is probably just like trying to sort of get it all done in the best way possible, in the most efficient way possible.
Exactly.
I think that's probably like a big roadblock for most business owners. It's just trying to,
Correct.
yeah,
Well, I had to get my team. I mean, but the beauty of this is you can do it because, people have team members all over the world, but we can
Mhm.
send links to people at different places and then pull all their input into one document. So that's not a problem. I decided to have my team at the table. We would read the question, discuss, and then I answered. But other people can chime in. That doesn't cause any problems whatsoever.
So, Jenna, you guys also offer a lot of AI tools. I know
Yep.
that you like, you sort of like integrated, you have your own trademarked AI stuff too.
Yep.
Like you have things like, I know you have Box Plan and Brand Wrap.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
so you really embraced this sort of AI wave that has been happening in the last few years.
Well, I have a
Um,
confession to make.
yeah, go ahead.
You ready for this? So my dad was a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, but he also worked for the Department of Defense, and he was really like a cutting edge guy. And he built a computer in our house. So I attribute, I swear to God, 3/4 of my dates in high school. I dated a lot of guys in high school. I think they wanted to see the computer my dad built. I swear to God, because they spent as much time talking to my dad as they did me.
Oh
But
my
one of the
God.
things I know it's true. None of them say that's true, but I suspect something there. Because it was so cool. It took up an entire wall in our house. It was nuts. So my dad, when we think it was probably 93, if I'm not mistaken, maybe, yeah, probably 93. He said, Janet, you got to do something on the web. The World Wide Web's where it's gonna be. Figure it out. And so I thought, and that's where the whole digital agency came in. And I mean, I went into Bristol Myers Squibb. I said, I want to build a website for you. And they're like, what? What's a website? And I said, well, it's going to go on the World Wide Web. And they said, well, what's that? I had to define what the web was. I used to put up www equals, which is bananas. But it was, I think it was 2 years ago on New Year's Eve. My parents were over. We had a little party. And my dad said, hey, Janet, you know what you need to do? You need to make sure that you have AI incorporated into everything you do. I was like, okay, Dad. And so we did. And we really started looking into it. And, we were making it up as we went along. But what we realized was it's not the be all end all. But what it does is it empowers. It's just kind of like what's the word for it? I think it's more like a superhero who doesn't really have superpowers themselves, but it's like what's his name? Iron Man. So Iron Man is a dude, now very charming, very funny, hilarious, rich dude. but
Yeah.
he can't do anything without his suit and his jetpack. That's what AI is for us. It turns like a chick, who's lived in New York City for God knows how many years, who's a smart ass, who likes to have fun, into a superhero as far as the agency world goes, because I put my suit on, which I love red, and I put my backpack on, and I can bust the shit out of stuff. This team can knock out an amazing amount of stuff. And it's really just building the tools and then, giving it to our partners too. So we're actually licensing some of our tools to clients because they're like, damn, I want to use that stuff. And I was like, no problem. I can build you an Iron Man suit too. I got it.
No,
That's really what it
totally.
is.
I mean, AI is also just, I think we're at a point in time where I don't think AI has been perfected enough to sort of take over a lot of stuff.
No.
So it really is more just like an optimization tool. At least in my opinion, I don't think it's at a place where it can replace human involvement entirely, even though maybe in some cases it might, but it is necessary, right?
One of the things that we realized was I was doing the brand map interviews, and I did those personally because I wanted to interact with the CEOs of the companies, which I thought was a great idea. They would take an hour and a half of my time. My team said, hey, why don't we automate this? And I was like, okay, what are the pros and cons? And so we discussed it, and I said the pros outweigh the cons by far. And you know what? Clients dig doing it because if they want to do their brand map interview at 2 a.m, I don't care. We get the transcript anyway. It gives them some freedom and flexibility. It clears out an hour and a half of time. So that's a big deal. And you know what? It worked great. It's been very successful. So we've been creating products like that enable our clients or us to do work faster and better. We don't take out humans because I would never give a brand map to somebody who I haven't reviewed. I mean, we review everything of the output, and then we add in information that can't come from AI because it's here, and they can't read my mind, at least not yet. All of this is walled off. So each client's stuff is contained. It's not informing the system, nor is it being informed by anything else, only by the things I'm giving it. So, in that way, we're eliminating the potential for hallucinations, which I've seen. Like I've seen documents that I was working on, it pulled something in. I was like, what the hell is that? That's coming from another source. It has nothing to do with what I'm doing. That's called a hallucination.
That's so interesting. And I think, I think that's a great note to end this on. You've said so many interesting things today, Janet, to us. I mean, you're such a cool person. But before we finish the podcast,
sure,
we want to give you the space to plug anything that you want to plug. If anything that we spoke about today resonated with our audience, if anybody would like to talk to you, connect with you, the space is yours.
Sure. You know what? I don't feel like I need to too much. We specialize in healthcare. We're working with small to medium healthcare and wellness companies. We're doing business plans for other companies. We had Sotheby's called us and wanted us to do a business plan. Far be it for me not to take their money. I'm good with that. But healthcare is a special love of ours. It's our niche, but or niche, as some of my friends say, whatever. But it's really, if you don't have a plan, what the actual hell are you thinking? Like, call us up and get some help. If you want to do everything that we recommend yourself or get someone else to do it, rock on. If you need our help, we're here to help you. So it's really just empowering small and medium business owners to get their product or services out in the world. And we're happy to do that.
Cool. I will be adding the links to your website and everything to the description of this video so that everybody watching can go and find you easily.
Awesome.
And thank you so much for doing this today, Janet. It was a pleasure having you.
Same here. Thank you so much. It was great fun.
It was great fun. All right, guys, I will see you on the next episode. Goodbye.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest. And to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend and, of course, subscribe.